So the iQOO Neo 10 is probably the best phone under rupees 30,000 right now. But after having used it for the last 75 days, there is something that is holding it back from being a complete all-round package. Now, if you're wondering what that thing is, watch this video, stay tuned with me, and I will give you a detailed, very long-term review of the iQOO Neo 10 because we have some really interesting thoughts on this device. Alright, if you're watching me for the first time, I'm Aishat. This is Trakin Tech English, your destination for detailed, incisive gadget reviews. Obviously, the first thing that you will notice when you take the iQOO Neo 10 in your hand is that it has a large battery, and despite that, it's actually very comfortable to hold, primarily because it's not very thick. It's just 8.1 millimeters thick and it weighs about 208 grams. But the only fundamental problem with the iQOO Neo 10, which I noticed earlier as well, and it continues to bother me, is the fact that it is a little bottom heavy. So, this happens a lot. Now, we've used the iQOO Neo 10 without a case for the entire duration of the 75 days that we were testing it, and we've dropped it on more than a couple of occasions, definitely not on purpose but carelessly, and it has just one ding to show for it at the top corner. Now, obviously, this entire phone is made of plastic, including the side frame, of course, with a metal reinforcement in the on the interior. But you know what? If you ask me, the orange color variant of the phone is something that I'm not really a big fan of. It doesn't look very premium. I'd pick the more somber gray variant instead. Now, after having tested a bunch of Vivo and iQOO phones for long-term durations, we've noticed one thing is that Short Sensation Alpha is actually a very good glass protection if you want to keep micro scratches at bay. I don't know if it's as drop resistant as Corning Gorilla Glass, but I still think that this is very good, and this is something that most people don't talk about, and I felt like something that we should definitely say. Now, what you also do get is IP65 rating, but in this price range, you have phones that do come with IP68, 69 rating. So, that would have been a better option, but still for the Pune range, IP65 is okay. Now, one thing that I am slightly disappointed with, not slightly, actually very disappointed with, is the fact that at the bottom, you get a USB Type-C 2.0 port. Now, this is a performance-oriented phone, and we're in 2025. Any phone that costs upwards of 30,000 rupees should come with faster USB 3 speeds. That should be a non-negotiable, honestly. Alright, we have a lot of ground to cover, but before that, if you like the kind of videos that we make, and if you haven't subscribed to our channel already, go ahead, do that. It's probably in some color like this. Now, the display experience on the iQOO Neo 10 has been fantastic in our time with the phone. Now, what you get is a flat 6.78-inch panel with 1.5K resolution and a peak of 144Hz refresh rate. In fact, even the HPM is a very bright 2000 nits, which is the highest for this segment, and the peak brightness in HDR is 5500 nits. That's not it. Even the PWM dimming rating is a very high 4320 Hz. And all of this put together makes this a fantastic, probably the best display experience in this price range. Now, whether you're talking about sunlight legibility, this is the best in this price range. Whether you're talking about the HDR tuning or the color reproduction, this is again the best in the price range. And you also do get support for HDR video playback on YouTube and Netflix as well. In fact, after using the iQOO Neo 10's display, it feels like some very expensive phones also do not match the performance of this one. The only feature that's missing probably is LTPO, but this is fine. At this price, nobody's asking for LTPO. Also, one thing to note is that 144Hz definitely doesn't function in the UI. UI runs at 120Hz, but it functions in certain games, and those games are not games that that I would want running at 144Hz, so that's not what I was expecting. Basically, Clash Royale and Clash of Clans run at 144Hz. I know that a lot of people still play it, but I feel like in, FPS games like BGMI, COD, it would be better suited. Now, the display is too good to be true, so we had to check online to see what consumer experiences was like. So we landed on a few Reddit threads where people were complaining about some patches that they were noticing in dark rooms, especially when the display was displaying some dark colors as well. However, we didn't face this at all or could not replicate this at all, so we cannot confirm if that is actually a problem that you should worry about, because otherwise the display is genuinely fantastic. Now, the touch response is very good. You get an optical in-display fingerprint scanner that also works really well, but the one thing that disappointed me was the haptic feedback experience. It's not very premium. It's kinda average. However, FunTouch OS actually does implement it very well across the UI elements. That said, I wanted better, tighter vibrations. Now, you get stereo speakers with the phone and they get extremely loud. There's no problem with that. In fact, you also do get a 300% volume mode, but I wouldn't recommend using the 300% volume mode because it tends to crackle. The sound tends to crackle. In fact, why don't you take a listen to the volume at 100% and 300%? You'll get to know what the difference is that I'm talking about. Alright, now performance was where iQOO Neo 10 was expected to shine, and it of course delivers. So basically the iQOO Neo 10 is the first phone that launched in India with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 4, which is a very, very powerful chip. Now you also get 3 variants of the phone, 8 128GB, 12 256GB and a 16 512GB variant. This is all LPDDR5X RAM type, but the storage type is different, because with the 128GB what you get is UFS 3.1 storage, with the 256 and the 512GB you get UFS 4.1 storage. So obviously it goes without saying that you should not buy the 128GB variant of the phone if you're considering the iQOO Neo 10. You should start at 256GB. Firstly, storage size itself is a limitation, but the storage speed is also a limitation. Now that UFS 3.1 is slow, but UFS 4.1, if you have the option of that within the same phone, then you should definitely go for that one. Now talking about performance, obviously the chipset and even the 3.1 UFS 3.1 variant of the phone is going to be more than enough for daily usage. It's fast, it's responsive. There's nothing to complain about that at all. In fact, there are budget phones that perform, very well these days. So this phone is not going to struggle at all at basic tasks like emails and Twitter and Instagram and all of those things. But we do some performance benchmark testing to figure out how brands have actually tuned the phone, and the 8 Gen 4 has been tuned really well by the iQOO team. So basically, whether it's benchmarks like AnTuTu or Geekbench, the iQOO Neo 10 just flies. This is a very, very well performing or good performing phone. And if you're throwing like high-end games at it, even if you do emulation, all of that should work absolutely fine. Genshin Impact, Wuthering Waves, GTA 5, yeah, all of that will work fine. Now obviously I'm not going into detailed performance testing for this specific video. I've already done a bunch of comparisons. Now if you haven't watched them, I'll link them in the I button here. Go check it out. So overall, in the 30,000 rupee price category, even if you have UFS 3.1, this is the best performing phone that you can get right now. And like I mentioned, the power efficiency of the 8 Gen 4 is also so good. And when you pair that with a 7000 mAh silicon carbon battery, it is like crazy in terms of battery life. We are consistently getting over 10 hours of screen on time. And my, friend from the industry, Parth, who actually writes content for Tech Bar, he's getting over 12 hours, 15 hours of screen on time. So yeah, the iQOO Neo 10's, battery performance is stupidly good, very good. So if you're not pushing the phone for performance, you can easily expect 2 days of battery life from the phone for sure. And that's not it. iQOO doesn't even compromise on charging speeds. You get a proper 120 watt charger inside the box, and it can juice up the battery from 0 to 100 in just 35 minutes. So best overall performance tuning, best battery performance tuning, and even the best charging speeds in this price range. iQOO Neo 10. Alright, now let's talk about the cameras on the iQOO Neo 10. You can see the specs on your screen. I'm directly jumping to the pictures and the quality of the pictures that we noticed after 75 days of usage. By the way, the iQOO Neo 10 has already received 3 updates till now, and we tested the cameras after the updates. Now you do get a very decent amount of detail in daylight and in low light shots, by the way. I kind of like it, but I still feel like if iQOO had used a bigger sensor instead of the IMX882, the detail retention could have been better. However, I absolutely love how iQOO uses Vivo's algorithm to nail the color reproduction, and that's thanks mostly to the fact that you get the natural color mode. Of course, you don't get the Zeiss branding that you get with Vivo phones, but the natural color mode actually does a very good job as well. That said, the skin tone recognition of the brown skin was alright, but black skin tones can have some issues even after the multiple software updates that we've received. The HDR tuning is top class. You get fantastic HDR gradation, especially with the primary camera. It's getting very, very good, by the way. In fact, the iQOO Neo 10 also does a great job of ensuring there is no bloom around the face when shooting people against a harsh backlight too. Now, while the phone does not have a dedicated telephoto lens, you can still take portraits at 1x, 1.5x and 2x, and you get really good semantic segmentation and natural looking bokeh drop off as well. I would trust the iQOO Neo 10 for portrait shots. Now coming to the 8 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, it's alright. It gets the job done, but nothing more than that. And the video recording is also limited to 1080p 30 fps, so keep that in mind. The selfies come out very detailed, both in daylight and in low light, and the selfie skin tones are also on point. But the selfie portraits still require some work. While the bokeh looks natural, the edge detection can sometimes be a miss. When it comes to video recording, you can record videos at 4K 60 FPS from both the main and the selfie camera. Now the videos have good amount of detail in both daylight and low light, and even the HDR tuning is good. Stabilization is not too bad either. So overall, if you look at it, I do like the cameras on the iQOO Neo 10. It's tuned well. Of course, it could have had better hardware, but since this is a performance-oriented phone, I'm not really, complaining too much. Now let's talk about the one thing that holds back the iQOO Neo 10 from becoming an all-round beast, and that is FunTouchOS 15. Of course, what you get is FunTouchOS 15 based on Android 15, and iQOO is promising 3+4 years of updates as well. Now, on paper, FrontTouchOS 15 does bring a lot of good features, including AI features. For example, you get call translation, you get circle to search, Gemini support, instant cutout, photo eraser, all of that work exceptionally well. But my fundamental problem with FrontTouchOS is that the UI is pretty dated. Pull down the notification shade, just take a look at the quick settings, tiles, not very cool looking, I must say. The animations are fluid enough, but it lacks the polish of parallel animations that you get with OxygenOS 15. Now, the blow to a situation on the phone is definitely better. It's not bad, but yeah, you do get some third-party apps pre-installed which you might not want to use, so you can uninstall them. So all that iQOO needs right now is OriginOS or FrontTouchOS 16 with some features of OriginOS and modern UI. That's all we are asking for. That's it. Nothing else. So after spending 75 days with the iQOO Neo 10, we can confidently say that iQOO does get a lot of things right with the phone. The display experience is absolutely top class. The performance tuning has been done really well. The battery life is insane. And even the camera experience is not too bad, right? So if you're a gamer or if you're looking at a performance-oriented phone, then you really cannot go wrong with the iQOO Neo 10. But for somebody who is looking at a more balanced option with a great software experience, then FrontTouchOS is what continues to hold iQOO back. And that is the one thing that I mentioned at the start, that there's something holding it back, and that has to be the software experience. Imagine if iQOO had OxygenOS or ColorOS or even Nothing OS for that matter. Imagine the experience that you would have had on this phone. So that was our overall take of the iQOO Neo 10 after 75 days. If you can live with the FrontTouchOS experience, this is a banger smartphone. I really like it. What do you guys think about the iQOO Neo 10? Also, if there are any iQOO Neo 10 users in the house, let us know what your thoughts are in the comments, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, keep tracking and stay safe.